watching QTV this morning. It's another edition of the This Morning program here. We're sending love to all our viewers. We are back again. I am Ibrahim Abalde, and of course on the platform today I am joined by my colleague, Mr. Aliou Cisse. Mr. Aliou Cisse, double Mr. Aliou Cisse.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim Abalde. It's a pleasure to be back on the This Morning program.
It's good to have you here always. And of course, coming up on our program today, we'll be looking at the African proverb, and of course the newspaper review with our only brother, Sidi Cisse of Kachadula, the PRO of Jabang Estate. So we'll be talking to him. He'll be taking us through the newspaper review, and of course, we were supposed to have the National Disaster Management Agency. Mr. Jove was supposed to be on the program, but he is on another engagement. We understand that, at this time, at this moment, things are so tight with the National Disaster Management Agency. Maybe we'll have him on our subsequent program. And of course, we'll also talk to Mr. Alpha Robinson, an engineer, and we'll be looking at the flooding in Banjul. And of course, whenever such things happen, engineers are always going up and down to see how best to bring solutions on the table. And today there will be no click segment, Aliou.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim Abalde. Like you said, that's the lineup for This Morning program today. And we start with the African proverb, which says, the mouth of an elderly may stink, but not his words.
The mouth of an elderly may stink,
but not
his words. I think this is modern. But first of all, let's welcome our guest.
Exactly. Our special guest.
Mr. Cisse, you are welcome on this platform. It's good to have you here. Viewers are getting used to you on this platform, but at some point you're so busy you can't come on our platform.
I'm a small businessman, so I have to make ends meet.
Oh, you're a businessman too?
Small businessman. Thank you so much, Abalde, and thanks to my brother. I feel like I'm in state of affairs today.
Yeah, that's
but nonetheless,
you can
still look out for...
It's more of a light state of affairs. State of affairs is a very strong program. Sometimes I feel like you want to beat your guest.
But today he's on the guest seat, so...
Yes.
But again, this evening you'll see the Commissioner General Aliou, who is no one but Yankuba Dabo on State of Affairs. So look out for it. Interesting discussion.
At 9 p.m.
Absolutely.
9 p.m. Thank you.
So, the mouth of an elder may stink, but not his words. Brother Sidi, what do you make of this proverb?
Thank you, Aliou. Thank you, Balde. I think this is a common sense proverb. You can hear, they would say, in Mandinka, for example, keba sito kamenje di no loto be kaje magbu tok lum de gis hale bu taw du ko gis basically it's telling you that an elderly person, his words, you will always see it. So it's quite important thing. I think our generation, we've been taught a lot. When elders say to you, don't do this, they're not stopping you because they want to stop you. They say stop it because they see something different, and it goes across board in all our social life. When you talk about marriage, you talk about moving house, you talk about settlements and all those things. It comes there where they would see something or they know something that you don't know, but they won't tell you directly. But they don't do this. They will tell you, it's better you do something else, but don't do this and stuff, because they have seen something. That's the wisdom elders come with. Yes, I think the bottom line is our generation and the generation after us.
This is wisdom, as you said. Sometimes it goes beyond just reading out the proverb, but it teaches you experience. This proverb reminds me of experience. All of njaya munekula mak opala sagar. All those things. We use all those terms. This is telling you, experience is the best teacher. The things that an elder passed through, he is the best person to advise you on what to do. But sometimes I've heard people who don't take certain things. Generations are changing to an extent whereby people want to do things on their own. The 21st century, I mean, people want to live, you know, the way they like, the way they feel, what is best for them. What do you think of this?
I mean, I think people who does that, you know, are not being rational about it, you know, will have a pitfall. If, for example, you have an elderly person who has no emotional attachment or no interest to whatever you want to adventure in, and I have given you, you know, a sincere advice, it's better you take it. Because if you don't take it, you will end up, you know, have a pitfall. So it is always important. I mean, of course, there are certain people who may have vested interest in certain things, and then may actually discourage you or push you away from it. And, you know, you gotta, at the end of the day, you as a person must also have common sense. But the bottom line is that most of the times when advices are given, their advice is based on sincerity and honesty. When those are done, please stick with it. If you don't stick with it, down the road you'll have a pitfall, and I think that is it. But again, the younger generation, yes, you know, we tend to say this sometimes, but again, you know, kubuga yar simbeda. You know, if you want to be trained in the street, Satan will be your cheliver. If you want to be trained in the street, Satan will be your elder or your guidance.
Exactly.
So it's always important. We have seen it. You know, it's not like, you know, we cannot put our fingers on this. We can put our fingers on this. We have seen people who misbehave, you know, in every shape or form. And the end game, we've seen it. So these are not stories. You know, if you tell me if you take an ice block out of the freezer, it is not going to defrost. You know, I mean, the bottom line, if you do, it is going to defrost. So it is very clear. You know, Mac Herla, you know, if you knock it, you know, you're going to feel it. You know, so it is important for us to understand that culture, you know, is important. And those values of culture also must be nurtured. We cannot just live astray. Absolutely. And I think, you know, when we want to live astray, we'll end up having a lot of pitfalls. And it is actually happening now. Some people are sitting in prison and regretting for what they've done if they have listened. You know, so let's hope and pray that we don't become victims of that.
That's the best advice. In as much as you're advising the young generation to, you know, to take advice from the elders, I mean, do this apply to every elder? I mean, so some elders, I mean, I don't want to use certain terms, but then, I mean, it's terrible, huh?
Yeah, you see, when you talk about, you know, advice, you should take advice from anybody, you know, whether you are 60 or 70, even your son can advise you, your wife can advise you, your brother, your sister, you know, somebody who really cares for you can advise you. You know, one should not feel like, you know, I know all and I'm big for all. Exactly. You know, it doesn't pay off. You always must have an advice. That's why even presidents, prime ministers, you know, chiefs, alcalos will always have an advisory body. Exactly. Because, you know, what you see, you know, in it and somebody outside what they see is different. Yeah, if you're a football spectator, you may see Ronaldo have a good chance to score, but probably Ronaldo in the field did not see that goal to score. So definitely it's important, you know, we leave our ears out to get the right advice. The right advice. Because sometimes certain people may advise you in the wrong way.
Definitely.
It is always good to have certain people to talk to.
I remember when I was a very, very small boy, there is a guy, he smokes very well. I mean, this guy is a heavy smoker. He called me one day and said to me, have you ever smoked? I said, no, I've never smoked. He said, please don't smoke. You know, and I was like, how can a smoker tell me not to smoke? Why is he telling me not to smoke? And he's smoking. Why is he smoking? You know, and you know, it's good that I took his advice and I didn't smoke, and I've seen the benefits. You understand? On the whole, he was trying to advise me for my own good. Some people will advise you based on experience. Some will advise you based on what they know. So it's better. Sometimes it's difficult. People will judge people. I mean, he is like this and he's advising. Who is he advising? Yeah.
Whether I'm the right person to advise me because of, you know, judging by, you know, what the person has gone through or what the person has committed in the past. I mean, that's a valid point there.
It's very important, yes. I think it's a very relevant proverb. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean,
but sorry to jump in there. Yeah, what you said is very good, Aliu. But you know, we must look at this beyond, you know, here and look at in a typical Gambian context. One thing that pissed me off, well, let me use this word because it really annoys me. Balde, if you do something and I'm not happy about it, I should tell you. I should not go behind your back and say, you know, I've watched your program a few times, you know, I will send you a message. Or if I see you in person, I'll talk to you, Aliu and everybody.
Yeah,
but if I'm critical of you, I don't dislike you. I like you, in fact. But those who praise you for sake of praising you, be careful with it. And Gambia, we have a culture here. If you're critical of somebody, you are my hater. Let me borrow that word from the rappers. Haters. They dislike you. And that is not the case. Those who are critical of you, they're honest with you. They're telling you that these are things that you need to double up. If somebody just keep praising you, Balde, you're doing so much, you're doing good. Balde, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Aliu is not perfect. So at some point, somebody got to come to us and say, you know what? You are not doing the right thing. And you got to listen to them. So arrogance, you know, put it aside.
Arrogance and pride.
Let people advise you, and you get it. But in Gambia, majority of people, if you call them and talk to them about their defects, it's like you hate them. And we must learn to nurture that critical thinking that, you know, I can talk to Aliu and say, Aliu, you know, I don't like what you said, I don't like what you do, but because I think this is the way to do. We discuss it mutually and respectfully and maturely, than because I'm critical of NDMA and they see me as an enemy, or you are critical of Q group, they see you as an enemy. No, you know, we should be very careful that we should open up to learn from others.
I think you made a great point there. I mean, many people have been segregated and put to corners because, I mean, they tell people the truth. They tell people their loopholes, their weaknesses. I mean, but they are being segregated and put to a corner. I mean, the society should not work like that. Thank you very much, Brother Sidi. And of course, that's the African proverb for you. We'll be taking a short break. After the break, then we'll go straight to what we call the newspaper review. And we'll be reviewing the newspaper with Brother Sidi Cisse. We'll be back.
Check out the all-new Tigo 8 at S-Pass Motors. Call 3522-222 or 353-2222 for more information. Cherry.
It's QTV this morning, and I am Ibrahim Abalde, and of course, I'm with Aliu Cisse. And now we'll go to the newspaper review. Aliu, what do we have there?
Thank you very much, Ibrahim Abalde. I have the Point newspaper and the Voice newspaper. Well, on the Point newspaper, Barrow promises a $46 million water canal project by December as part of efforts to help curb the persistent floods in the country. Yes, we also have Drug Law Enforcement Agency arrests 5 suspects with suspected sunk Moroccan hashish. And on the Voice newspaper, I mean, we have the downpour affects Nemosu residents over. President Barrow comments on education sector's hard work. And then we also, Gina Bass orders risk missing Commonwealth Games over visas, but as we speak, we understand they have arrived in UK finally for the Commonwealth Games, and they were received by the head of delegation, Bakari Jame. Basically, that's what we have on the Point and on the Voice newspaper. And
okay, and yes, I have the Foroya here, and of course, Banjulian rapper receives $30,000 compensation from Gambia Police Force. Wow, the police force are compensating people for beating them now.
Proceed.
Imagine me troubling the police and they beat me and they give me $30,000. Of course, we have the National Civic Education told if corruption is not addressed, Gambia will remain undeveloped. And we also have unprecedented heavy downpours leave tens of families homeless within KM. And we have another one which reads, partners that sign MOU with TRRC needs to respect agreements. Commuters lament bad feeder routes in Farato, Bojang, Kunda. And of course, on the editorial, we have an example of good practice in governance, the police and the rapper Sirif Kamara. When will exiles from Kirmod Ali have justice? That's what we have on the Fourier newspaper.
Yes, Sidi, let's start with the president's promise of a $46 million project, water canal by December to help, address the issue of the canal problem we have in the country. Yesterday he was out on a side visit, and he visited various areas that was affected by the heavy downpour. What do you make of this announcement by the president that his government...
Thank you very much, Aliu. Quickly, before we come to that, we must commend the leadership. That's the president and the presidency, including Her Excellency, the Excellency, the Vice President as well, who was also out on Sunday with other various ministers, works, environment, and other ministers were all out to see it for themselves. They didn't sit in their homes, to see it on television or on social media. So we must commend them for that job well done. Of course, we expect them to do that, and when they do it, we should commend them for that. And yesterday too, we saw the president coming out with his team to also see it for themselves. And hearing this news from him, this big project, I think is a very commendable effort, and we must commend them for that, and we must tell them to at least deliver. You see, the issue here is you can bring billions, but the delivery is very important. Yes, all these things involves money. Now the money is high mark for it. But we must look at what are the factors why all these things are happening. We know global warming is part of it. We know human stubbornness is part of it. In the Gambia, we know what actually transpired because settlements and drainage systems are poorly built or never, existed. We know we have a very bad planning system or very bad planning. People actually give, very little attention to where they put their houses, how they construct their houses, and all those. So there's a lot of things involved. So, Ali, with this money, with the right supervision, I think we can see this thing to be a thing of the past. But with global warming, we all know climate change. We all know that we'll have serious problems. So it's better we start planning. And I think that is what the president is talking about. They've got the money. They want to make sure that we have a good drainage system, we have a good waterway, and so that people will not suffer. And I also had the vice president was all talking about resettlement. I think that is also important. There are several areas that are, up for flood, the Kotu Strip and all those areas.
Yes, I think what we will do, Sidi, we understand the president was out yesterday. We will go with a report on that visit by the president, and when we come back, we will discuss more into detail about his visit. Let's take a listen. Strategic locations of water passage points in Ibo Town, Aboko, Nemakunku, Bundung, Jabang Estate, Brikama Jambar, Mariama Kunda, and Kotu Bridge on the Senegambia Road, which are among the several areas affected by the floods caused by Saturday and Sunday's heavy downpour. This is a bridge which links between Mariama Kunda and then that other end, that's the road leading to Yuna and Madiana and then to Brewfoot. Because of the heavy downpour, this bridge has not been usable. And then, as you go through, you can see, it really takes, somebody to really be careful to be able to cross here to the other end. And you can see people from on the other side have also come just to have a glance of the president. Most of the water passage points need restructuring to ease the flow of water. The president said the visit, which was preceded by that of his vice president Badra Diouf on Sunday, is also meant to give him first-hand information of the conditions of the people following the rains, which have been described as the highest rainfall experience in the country in over 3 decades. President Barrow commiserates with victims and promises government's swift response with food aid and other needs. He adds that the government has secured funding for 2 major projects that will see the construction of major canals to ease the flow of rainwater along Nemakunku, Bundung, Kotu, and Aboko.
As a government, we are the one doing the policies. We have to be strict with our government policies to make sure that when you are settling in any part of these areas, government physical planning must look at the area and definitely assess it and pass it and approve the construction that will happen there. But immediately, we have seen some of the problems. There are problems that must be solved immediately. By tomorrow, we will sit down together. We see how best, what envelope can we provide immediately to go and solve the people's problem. Because some of them, they need food, you know, and mattresses and other things. The NDMA is here, the ministers are here, and the vice president is the one doing the oversight function as far as the environment is concerned. So by tomorrow, you would have gotten an envelope to go and address the immediate problems. For the long-term problems, we have a lot of projects that are coming. One of the projects is the drainage for the Greater Banjul area. That drainage, it is costed, it is about $70 million. $70 million to address the drainage problem in the Greater Banjul area. Already, we have the project, and we have already submitted the project to the Indian government, because we have a line of credit with the Indian government that is about $200 million. But to justify our case and access the money, that's why we have already sent that project, and we are very sure that the project will be approved, because it's a social project. Other one also, we have the resilience. That is the coastal resilience project is also coming up. That is $46 million. That is $46 million. That will be from Abuko. The canal from Abuko going to Kotu Stream. That will start in December. So that is coming to start in December. So that is another project that is coming up.
The president wrapped up his visit at Tobacco Road in Banjul and the pumping machine at Bond Road. Here, the people are yet to recover from the impact of the flood as they plead with the president for quick action to address the situation in Tobacco Road. If there is no more heavy rainfall, it will take at least a couple of days to discharge the water to the sea, as the contractor Hadimgay is working on the pumping machine. The floods have been largely blamed on the lack of a proper drainage system and on people settling on waterways, which are unsuitable for habitation. Victims applauded the president for the visit and hope it will be followed with concrete action to alleviate their suffering. The president was joined on the visit by cabinet ministers, technicians, officials of NDMA, the mayor of KM, the deputy mayor of Banjul, and West Coast Regional Authority officials.
Hello, it's
yes,
interesting.
Exactly. It's quite interesting, Ibrahim Balde. Sidi, I mean, you've watched that report on the president's visit yesterday. He talks about policy implementation, which you were trying to explain, you know, on the need to have policies being implemented. He talks about, you know, the immediate action that his government will take in terms of providing food and, you know, material support to affected victims. But there's also revealed plans about long-term, you know, plans to help address this issue, talking about $70 million. I mean, a drainage project for the Greater Banjul area, about an additional $46 million coastal resilient project, also to help, you know, construct some canals along Abuko and other areas. I mean,
thank you very much, Aliu. For me, it's like when Balde gives his wife fish money to go to the market. I know that Balde definitely like Jahato in his Mbahal, and go and do the shopping, and come home and say, suma jëkkër def de buga Jahato de, arama dawal ma dem si marché bi. Why I say that? We all know when you build roads, you have to factor water. Nowhere in this country have they built roads and factor water. So for me, we're going out to borrow money to build waterways, when these things should have been factored at the very beginning of building those roads.
It should have gone together. I mean,
yes,
yeah, it's a side by
so,
side. Yeah.
So somebody somewhere is not either being truthful or is not doing his job.
Well, I mean, if you look at some of the drainage system we have in the Gambia, I mean, yesterday we discussed it here when Mr. Ade was sitting right there. I mean, you look at the drainage system, at some point, you know, when it comes to a point, it leads nowhere. It stops. If you go to Westfield, there is one drainage system which they did. I mean, it went to where you have this Tabokoto vehicle. Yeah. It goes nowhere. It stopped there. And it's supposed to continue to go maybe to the river or somewhere.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Somebody somewhere is either not being truthful or is not doing his job. And, you know, it is time that we call and name people out. We name them out and shame them out. Because today, lots of people are suffering because somebody somewhere did not do his or her job right. You know, let's talk about the Jambanjeli Sukuta Highway, for example. How many millions went in there? And today, people are homeless because of somebody's reckless behavior of not doing the right thing for the community of Jambanjeli, all the way to Sanya. They are suffering. And we know, when you build roads, you have to factor water. You know, sometimes you give certain examples, or don't give those examples. Take it, for example, England, for example. It rains every other day. But water has to go. It goes. It clears. So we had the money. We had, you know, they had all the projects, whatever you call it, to put it together to do a decent job.
You know, yesterday I said the money is there. There is money. Nobody can say there is no money. We have money to develop those things. We have money to do all those jobs. But some people said I should not say we have the money to do those jobs.
No, I think for me, I mean, the money might be there. But then, I mean, looking at the problem that this country has right now, for me, I mean, it's just too much, right? I mean, there are certain things for me, I don't think, in fact, this current government should have been focusing on those things. Those are things that should have been addressed by the previous regimes. The issue of, you know, people settling on waterways.
Yes.
I mean, like you said, physical planning, where were they when this thing was happening, and it continues to happen. People continue to settle on waterways. People continue to construct on places that is not approved by the physical planning, and nothing is happening. And this is the fact.
Yes, because
nobody
is enforcing.
Exactly, nobody's enforcing.
I had to, you know, take illegal actions
in Jabang
and go around and knock walls down.
And you were very honest to publicly.
I was honest to the president. I said I knocked it down.
Well, that's it. I mean, there is no one doing the job.
If we didn't knock those walls down, probably all the community of Java will be homeless because the water was not going. And unfortunately, in fact, the bigger wall that we knocked is actually a government reserve land.
And in fact, who allocated that land to start constructing on that place? That's a waterway.
Exactly. So this is the problem of physical planning. You know, physical planning, they have a lot to answer. They have a lot to do. I think I am not even seeing, I'm not feeling physical planning in this country. I mean, National Disaster Management Agency were here yesterday, Mr. Juve, day before, like last week, yes. I asked him, why not you coordinate and work with physical planning? I mean, to prevent certain things before they happen. But it's like they put blames on physical planning. And if you invite physical planning, you'll be putting blames on other institutions.
You see, the problem we have here, Balde, is institutions are not collaborating.
Exactly.
And physical planning is a small unit when you looked at the Gambia. Of course, they may have planning unit in Brikama, Masakonko, and all these areas, but it's quite small. And you see, we must enforce our laws. How many Tom, Dick, and Harry is out there making, you know, millions out of you and I because they are estate developers? They go out and demarcate anywhere they want to demarcate, and they just sold it to people because people want homes, people want houses. So the enforcement is not there. And that is the one thing that needs to be addressed. Unless we go back on the drawing board, unless institutions collaborate and we enforce, because we have the laws here. No one can sit and say, if Ali put up his house without not getting the right permit, we cannot knock it down. We can knock it down. But will we knock it down? Look at this OIC project. Initially we had, it was going to be 40 by 40 on both sides, 40 meters, 40 meters. And I understand, on record, they have now closing it to 30. And who is informed? Nobody is informed. Was physical planning aware of it? They were not aware of it. So somebody somewhere is doing things as he or she wishes. So going out there to take order, we need $70 million from India, or we had resilient fund, great. Those resilient funds should have gone somewhere else. Those that 70 million from India could have gone somewhere if we have done the right thing. Because whenever you build a road, you must have a waterway. It's a matter of fact. And this is what they are refusing to do. I sometimes ask myself, do we have serious engineers in this country? Yes, we may have engineers. Are they serious? From the National Road Authority down, do we have serious engineers? We don't.
Well, that's the question.
Because if they are not doing their job, they are not engineers.
If you cannot work on a small country like the Gambia here, I mean, a city like Banjul, you know, a place like Serekunda, you cannot even try to put up very good drainage systems that will help prevent flood.
It's not like they can't do it. It's a laissez-faire attitude. Nobody cares because nobody is punished until and unless the president get his act together.
Start whipping.
Not whipping, but making them responsible. You see, You talk about Talinding here. You talk about Churchestown. A waterway that is jammed.
Yeah.
They just build and stop.
Yes.
You go to Jambanjeli, they started something superficial, cosmetic form of work. It collapsed. For last 3 years, people are, leaving their homes, going to sleep in other people's houses because somebody somewhere, whether it's GAMWorks or whether it's the National Road Authority, are not doing their job properly for people to suffer. And they are sitting in their dry homes with their families, having their bread and butter.
Enjoying.
When the poor people are suffering, somebody must answer those questions,
well,
or else they will never be forgiven.
Well, that's a problem. You're talking about forgiveness. Many people care less about forgiveness. I mean,
it will wait for them there.
Today, people will tell you, okay, no problem. You want us to do this? Let's wait for Judgment Day.
When we talk about the physical planning, we talk about the laws and enforcement, but also the human factor as well. The human factor is very important. People also must understand one thing. If you're going to buy a land somewhere, you go to Brookfoot, Farokono, or you go to Willinkama, Farokono, whatever, you must try and find out the history of that place. Try and get an expert. Try and get a local person to tell you why this place is what. New Wulumbangoli, for example. This is Faro, for example. And if you really wanted to build a house, invest in it. Get the right people to come and advise you. Make sure you do a good job. If you cannot do a good job, my friend, don't do it.
Yeah, because and that's why we even have to start regulating the real estate.
Yes.
I remember yesterday when we were at Jabang. This was something that even the minister was trying to clarify. That some of these real estate, they just sell lands to people without even consulting the physical planning for approval.
And that is not only the private estate, even Social Security never contact a physical plan when they are demarcating Jabang estate. And you are talking about a parastate.
A place where they even sold the cemetery?
Yes.
Even the cemetery is sold.
As we speak, the Jabang estate doesn't have a cemetery.
It's sold.
You mean your community?
It's sold.
Now, if a person dies, where are they going to bury
We'll incriminate them. We'll burn the bodies. But that's what Social Security is telling us.
So Jabang doesn't have a cemetery?
No, we don't.
Jabang estate?
Yes, I told the president, and he said to me, don't worry, you're not dying now. But on a serious note, these things need to be looked at. Because, if you are giving people settlements, there has to be amenities. Mosques, churches, cemeteries, playing grounds,
very important.
Schools,
community centers.
And I can tell you,
very important.
You go to most of these communities, there's no reserve land.
Everything is sold. Everything.
And okay, down the line, 5 years, 10 years to come, people will start complaining, oh, we need a school, we need a market. Where will the government get the land to give you a market? Are they going to demolish other people's homes just to give you a school or a market?
Even traditional, traditional villages like Brikama, like Brookfoot, Sukuta, Sanyang, Gunjur. Take an example of Sukuta. They don't even have a market. They don't have a garage. And as we speak right now, the garage that they are using is a land of somebody. Tomorrow, if you work and they get out of here, the people of Sukuta will have no garage.
As big as Brookfoot.
I mean, Sukuta, even Brookfoot doesn't have a garage. In fact, Sukuta is better off. They are using somebody's land. Brookfoot, our garage is on our main road.
You're talking
and then you talk about a community like Brookfoot that have vast lands, but it's all gone. So the planning wasn't there. There was nothing like land banking. We never do land banking.
No,
and this is from the First Republic to the Second Republic. As far as this republic is concerned,
that's why I'm telling you, like, I mean, all this
nothing was left.
I mean, most of this problem is inherited. I mean, if proper work was done from the start, from the first regime to second regime to now, I mean, this government will not have find this problem as far as drainage.
Well, let's talk about
in as much as we must accept that definitely the rainfall was really high, and it is the highest in over.
Sometimes
40 years.
what I say to myself, I mean, what about if it's rain for 1 week? People will start dying in this country. People will start dying 1 week. And other countries, it rains for 1 week. You went to Nigeria. You know how Nigeria is like. You know Nigeria very well.
In Guinea, it was 6 months. Or in Freetown.
But then the good thing, like you said, CD, I mean, what we expect is to have all the actors work together. I mean, and the good thing about the president's visit yesterday, we saw the mayor, Taliban Suda, was part of it. I mean, the regional governor of West Coast region, the chairman, Chairman Sirifo Sonko, they are all part of the tour, trying to go around with the president to see the level of destruction. But what we need is action.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
This going around is what we need. It's not just about telling the president.
We have seen people that went round.
We don't need that.
No, this going around, we have seen similar ones like this before.
Exactly.
But This one, I said something was different. I saw a different President Barrow, and I saw a different Vice President.
Yeah.
But
Mr. Cisse,
I must say this. I must say this.
You are saying they are different?
No, different in the sense, what I
Okay.
saw they're doing, talking to us and interacting with us and saying, Badr Juf, actually, putting this, saying, you know what, I am going to come back here. And I don't want to see that structure there. Already, I've knocked down half of the structure anyway. Yeah. So if they come, they're going to do half of it. Yeah. But the reality is, we need, as Ali have said, serious action. All stakeholders must work together. Because at the end of the day, people's lives are in danger. As we speak, Balde and Aliu, for your information, there are tons of people visiting hospital because of diarrhea. Yeah. Because of diarrhea. Some of those people, if they don't get the right help, they would die.
Absolutely.
And I'm calling journalists to go and investigate these things. People are going to hospital because of diarrhea. People are lose a lot of their livelihood. Some people are homeless. Okay, NDMA, they can do what they can do, but it's not going to be enough. We cannot come here all the time and do the same thing.
Something I find so interesting, anytime the president goes out of visit, side visit, they don't want to be honest enough to take responsibility and said, yes, Mr. President, we haven't done our work. Everybody's trying to cover head. Everyone is trying to pull head. And they want to make him believe everything
giving
is okay.
excuse. It's because of this, that's why we couldn't complete this project. I mean,
that's not the case.
You've been given the project
for
in full
God's sake,
package.
I mean, if you feel you are not affected, I mean, okay, Manfale Oma, I am here serving now. If I'm done, I move on. Somebody else will come with inherit the same problem, and you will also be there, don't worry. In as much as we are not affected, you are getting a good salary, your family is living large, you don't care. That's it. And that's the problem of this country. People come, they don't care because they are not affected.
Absolutely.
They are not affected.
Absolutely.
They move on.
Like someone asked me, what about the flood? Does it affect you? I said I'm not
At the end of the
affected.
day,
But I mean, it's like I'm affected.
Absolutely.
Many people are affected.
That's the problem.
So it's a problem.
And then the next minute, you go and load a truck of food items, you go and give it to them 1 week, 2 weeks, that food stop is finished. Next year, another rain, another disaster again. For how long will you continue doing this?
We are going to be seeing...
You are appointed to do something.
Ali, we are going to be seeing more of this because we are all aware. In fact, let's take an example. In Jabang Estate, usually it happened around late August, September. But this time around, in July, it happened. And we are predicted, they've already predicted more rainfalls. So it's going to be very bad. So people must, like Ali have said, they must take responsibility. Let them be honest to themselves. If you are given a job you cannot deliver, please, for God and heaven's sake, pack it and let somebody do it. But you cannot be sitting there holding your position. And in fact, most of those people, they even refuse to go on annual holidays. We have seen people who are responsible of projects in this country, who are directors of institutions, who refuse to go on holiday for over 12 years. What are you hiding?
They'll force you to go on holiday. And
it's a problem. And the only time they act is when they realize, okay, the president is coming to visit the site, and they will start doing something just to make him believe something is happening. Just like the OLC projects, that's what we have seen. Nothing is happening. He's sitting in his office, they gave him false information about what is happening. When he came, what he found on the ground was completely different from what they were telling him.
I am very happy that the president expressed his disappointment when he saw certain things.
That's not enough.
He was not happy. I mean, now let's see what will happen.
That's not enough. For Barrow to say I'm disappointed, every day we are all disappointed. Exactly. But what do we do about it? Action. Things need to be done.
Things need to be done.
I mean, you are 7 months into your contract, you've done only 0.6%.
Or 1%.
You are 7 months into your contract, you've done 1%. Only 1.1%. It's unacceptable.
Well,
it is unacceptable.
If you look at the way things work in this country, people do things and they get away with it. I mean, so
we have
that attitude. So now, here the solution is, what are we going to do? I mean, to make sure these things stop. Should we start biting? Should the law start biting?
I think the law should start biting, but we must bring evidence forward. Programs like this and other programs that you guys host on this television and other media outlets must bring evidence. We must take emotions and sentiments away and bring the facts. We are going to bring facts out on the Jabang, the Sukuta Jambanjeli project on this very platform on Kachadula. We're going to come out. And we are doing our investigation to see what actually is responsible. Because when the president asks the director of National Road Authority, is this not fixed? Oh, yes, because the road is not handed over to us. That is not an excuse for me. It is not an excuse. Because for 3.5 years, those people are suffering, Aliu. Yesterday, we went there after the president left. We went with camera crews there. People have lost their livelihood. Their houses have gone down. People are homeless, completely. I'm not saying they have somewhere to hide themselves. Homeless. Not once, not two, not three. That's what is happening in Jambanjeli. And that's how it's been for the last 4 years. You are telling me you don't know anything about it? Yeah, because the road is not handed over to you? Who is responsible?
Yeah. Let's take a look at the health aspect of it. I mean, most people are focusing only on the floods. I mean, I think it is also a health threat to certain people. Where you look at the sewage in certain compounds, getting
that's what he's saying into
houses, in fact, you know, which is causing a whole lot of you know, health problems.
We can say this from record from the Director of Health Services that hospitals are receiving lots of diarrhea cases and a lot of other flood-related illnesses as we speak right now. So you guys to try to reach to them, because they have seen increasing number of people visiting hospitals because of flood, diarrhea.
Exactly.
So definitely there is health issues related to this. And we cannot continue to do this. You know, I mean, you're supposed to be looking at your family, but sitting in hospital. You say a family of 3 all sitting in hospital because they're sick. So it's unacceptable. So we must do something to remedy this. And that means all stakeholders has to be there. And the president, who is giving the leadership of this country and the trust and the confidence of the Gambian people, he must deliver. It's no compromise. President Barrow must deliver at most. It's no compromise. Well, and you know, you cannot please everybody.
Well,
he has to deliver. And that is, those who don't do their job, they have to go. They have to go. We have no room for them. They must go. It's not like, you know, the president is your brother, is your friend, or your auntie is going to come to the president, Balal Balde, Balal Amufi. Let the job be done or you go.
It's a national matter.
It's a national matter.
But we must put the country first. That's what we are saying. That's what we are saying. You are appointed to deliver. But the fact is that most of them are there just occupying the position because
you know the problem that we have. But if you tell the truth, if you tell the truth, I mean, people try to paint you otherwise. I mean, others will like address you in such a way you might not even like to. I mean, be involved in such kind of a conversation again. Especially you saying some people must go, and we all know there are people who are part of the system who are not doing good. They are not doing. They are just there to fill positions without even, I mean, delivering. We all know that. We have all seen that. Otherwise, certain things would have been prevented in this country.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, take an example. If, for example, you are a body that's responsible of contracts, like the National Road Authority, these contracts and all these consultants, you know, you are responsible. You are the oversight body for them. The OIC project. For 7 months, 0.6%, you as the body over the oversight body, you should be calling them to quarter deck. Why are they not delivering? So that report should have been on the president's table. The president should not come and see it for himself. That report, the report should be there. And that is not happening.
So
you know why it's not happening?
The matter is complicated.
You know why it's not complicated? You know why it's not happening? If I give you a contract and I don't give it to you based on merit, Lula Nenga Def. If you give me a brown envelope for a contract, yes, I cannot come to you and tell you the truth to your face. And so that is the problem in this country. You mean
some people are given brown envelopes?
Come on, it's common sense. Balde, it's common sense. If I give you a job, you don't do the job for 7 months and you are not reprimanded. Come on, what's going on? It's not rocket science. Okay. If you have your wife in your house 7 months, it's not doing what you want, come on, you call your in-laws. Moreover, the taxpayers' money.
All right. So what we'll do now, let's talk to our regional correspondent in URR. And you know, he also has a concern. I mean, you know, we'll want to hear from. There's no flood in Basse for now. Normally, the floods that we experience, the one that we experience in Basse, it's the Kabakama, normally Kabakama area. That's where we experience flood most of the time. But you have a concern to raise. I mean, Mr. Jallo, good morning. Alaji Jallo, good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning, Balde. How are you?
Very good. How is the morning?
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, we are doing very well.
What's happening in URR?
Well, in URR, the climate is fine, not like in the greater Banjul area.
Yes. So you have a concern to raise. Can you share that with us, please?
Yes, obviously. Balde, we have just witnessed recent flash floods happening in the country. And we have seen what it has caused in the greater Banjul area. So there is a cause of concern for people all around the country to also brace off because we have heard from the meteorological officers that these are situations that are going to happen. Now, in Basse, if you look at the bridge that you have seen already on the screen, that is the Guju bridge that connects to the river. And most of the times, when there are flash floods, this place is filled up with, is inundated with water. And the bridge is in the center of communities, if you can look at the stretch of the bridge. So there was a time, in fact, we have received our own flash floods at the beginning of the rain. So there is nothing done right now at this particular bridge. You can see we are expecting the local government officers, the area council, to be able to dog or to clean the drainage system so that when there is that heavy downpour of rain, then the water will flow right to the river. Yeah. But unfortunately, as we speak now, and we are gradually getting to the peak of the rain, nothing has happened yet. So we have received the first one, and that one was also very devastating because the water flowed inside the community, particularly in Kabakama. Kabakama, they are the prone areas that you have just observed. So we have received the National Assembly members of Select Committee for Disaster. They came here, they went around to see disaster hotspots area, discuss with stakeholders to see what they can do in order to mitigate some of these problems. But unfortunately, as we speak as of now, and we are getting to September, in URR, September, we used to receive a heavy rain.
Yes.
So as of now, nothing is done with regards to the drainage, and if care is not taken, there's going to be serious disaster, Balde.
Yeah, so were you able to, contact the area council, as to what's the problem as we speak?
In fact, when this thing happened, the area council officers were all, they were on the ground. They came to see themselves. Yes, they came to see themselves. They got first-hand information, and I visited the NDMA regional office to find out what measures are they going to put in place to remedy the situation. What they told me was they have already discussed with the stakeholders. There are plans in place to bring in bulldozers to dog the place here and there. But from now on, now it's over a month now. I have not yet seen anything happen. So this is, and the rain, we expect the rain can come at any time, because all these days we have seen the clouds are not clear. And as you used to know, that Basse, it used to rain heavily. So as of now, we have not received that rain, but we are expecting that, because we have had the weather forecast office, they said it's going to rain heavily within this period. So if that is going to happen, and this is not done, well, the disaster-prone areas, they are going to suffer very, very seriously.
And as we speak, no action has been taken, Alaji?
Nothing yet, Tise.
Interesting there. And we understand Kabakama is prone to flood. Flood. It's one of the places in Basse where people expect to flood all the time. Normally even dry season, you can see how the places at times. Is Elijah with us?
Yes, I'm with you about that.
Yes. So what do you think should be the solution?
Well, Balde, the solution is simple. The short-term solution as of now is to make sure that the drainage is properly taken care of. It is clean, so that when there is water, there will be no stock, and then eventually it will flow right to the river. Because if you look at that drainage that you saw just on the screen, when the water comes, and that particular bridge, is connected to erosion all the way from Casamas. When the water flows, especially when around Casamas had heavy rain, we are at the end point, we are at the receiving point. All those waters will come down to Basse. So if Basse rains, Casamas end rains, and it come down to Basse, this place we are seeing is going to, it will be very, very serious. So you see this point, it has to be clear. When we have the bulldozers and eventually they clear these areas and the stretch will go down to the river, then when there is water, it will easily flow into it. And the long-term plan is, Balde, the local government officers need to make sure that this area is properly concrete. They can use it as a different mode. They can even fish in this particular area. But they need to make sure that they properly maintenance and concrete the area so that the people will not. In fact, another problem is indiscriminate littering. People are indiscriminately littering. If you look at it in this area, so the officers, the national environment agencies, need to work very, very hard, work with the community to see how best they can avert some of this indiscriminate dumping, because people are dumping anyhow they feel like. So all these things is important that they need to take a robust action in order for us to not to get into such situations.
Thank you very much, Alai Jallo, for talking to us on this morning.
All right. Thank you so much, Balde.
Thank you so much, Alaji, for raising the alarm. So whoever is out there and you want to take the excuse that you are not aware, I guess this really tells us that something is looming in Basse. And if something is not done, another crisis is awaiting the people of Basse, especially those living around Kabakama.
Absolutely.
Kabakama, because
well,
that's
we
the
all know Kabakama,
exactly,
how serious that place is.
Exactly.
I mean, it's another one, brother city. But what?
I mean, you've seen it in the pictures. This is like, it is there. It has been there. They knew it. They know it. The project was not completed. This was a project. It was not completed. Who was responsible? Who was the consultant? Who was the contractor? This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, these are questions that should be raised, and they should be followed up. And we have Mr. Alpha Robinson in the studio. Welcome on this morning, sir. It's good to have you here. Mr. Robinson is an engineer, and he also raised concern on certain things that have happened. I mean, and we decided to invite him on this platform at least to discuss certain things, to see how best to at least exchange ideas on how to address certain things, especially when it comes to flood in this country. Yeah, so once again, you are welcome on this morning, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here. It's a great pleasure. But I want to start by saying that I feel for the victims of the flooding, like everybody else. And I do hope, and I guess we all do hope, that indeed something will be done to avert situations like this. Now, for those of you who don't know, because I've been away for quite a long time, I actually spent the first 10, probably 15 years of my life dealing with flood risk in Germany, in UK, in other parts of the world.
Hong Kong?
In Hong Kong, yes, Singapore. So this is the reason why I felt so passionate and curious, to the extent that I decided to go out and just see what was going on. Now, I'm just going to pick up on something that was discussed before. There is a distinction between flooding and flood risk. Flooding is a natural phenomenon. I mean, rivers do flood. It's, in very simple terms, too much water being at a certain place at a given time. It's as simple as that, in very simple layman terms. So it may actually, I wouldn't be surprised if other places indeed did flood. The difference between flooding and flood risk is that when you talk about risk, you're looking at the impact that it has. People who deal with risk, as Siri, will tell you that risk in the sector, we say risk is a product of probability, likelihood of something occurring, and the impact that that will have. So the fact that it floods somewhere and we don't notice is just because there are no people there. There are no urban setting or anything like that. So it's important to make that distinction and to understand that. I mean, natural flooding processes have actually been beneficial, and historically people have always gravitated around rivers, partly because rivers bring in a lot of nutrients when they flood, so that the floodplains are a very fertile ground. You heard about the fertile floodplains of the Nile in the Gambia here as well. And rivers provide a source of water and food as well. So I just wanted to set the stage.
Exactly.
Now, when we talk about flooding, it's important to understand that there are different types of flooding depending on the source as well as the cause. From what I saw going around yesterday, sorry, was it day before yesterday, the causes of flooding we have here were fluvial and pluvial. Fluvial meaning related to water courses, and pluvial meaning it is direct runoff, but there is also the element of drainage as well. Now, apart from those, there are other sources and causes of flooding, like flooding from the sea, extreme cases like tsunami, for example, flooding from groundwater, but those are not relevant in this case. Now, what is important is before you jump into solving any problem, you need to take time to understand the problem. You must understand the problem properly, because especially with water, water is very stubborn. If you're not careful, you will stop it from going here, and it will end up going somewhere else, and you may actually end up causing more harm and more damage. So you need to understand what the flooding is, how is the water getting to the places it is getting to where it is causing damage and harm to people and to their properties, to health, to the infrastructure, etc. And in the world of engineering, the wisdom is that before you start constructing, you must study. You must undertake a feasibility assessment to look at how feasible what you are planning to do is. And in situations like this, you don't just look at one solution. You actually consider different options, and then you compare the options. You do a benefit cost analysis, you know. In engineering, we say everything is possible. But of course, the more complex, the more complicated, the more money it costs. So you have to have a balance between solving a problem and the amount of money, the cost involved in it. Yeah. So I hope we will have another opportunity to talk a little bit more about flooding. But this is just what I wanted to share with you. And perhaps I'll let you ask some questions, and then we can talk more.
We want to look at the incident that happened in Banjul, yes. Tobacco to be specific. Yeah. What do you make of that incident?
Okay, I was born and bred in Banjul. In fact, I've lived in Banjul as long as I lived in the Gambia all my life. You know, as a kid, we used to play in the gutters, you know, running water in those days. We used to do boat races and stuff like that. I went to visit Banjul, and what I saw is that the streets were by and large clear, you know. In drainage, there are 3 different components, and all of these components must happen. Otherwise, you will have water going somewhere where it is not needed. First, you have to collect. If it rains, you have to collect the rainwater and keep it away from the roads and the streets. After collecting it, you have to transport it to a place where you can discharge it safely and walk away. Any of those components fail, the water will come out and it will cause damage. So if you don't collect it, the roads will be flooded, the homes will be flooded, it cannot get into the system. If it doesn't get transported, the water comes back out. If it doesn't go out properly to the discharge point, it will again come back. So what I saw was that the roads were clear, which suggests to me that the collection and the transport aspects have been catered for. But let's just be mindful, because you know, when we talk about flooding, we talk about events, rainfall events. I don't want to go into details, that much of detail here, but it doesn't mean that in this event the roads were clear and therefore the roads will always be clear, because rainfall has different characteristics, the depth of rainfall, the amount of water, and the intensity. So I then moved to look at the Tanbi, the area we call Tan. I don't know why nowadays it's called Tanbi. We used to call it Tan. But it's the area in the drainage system of Banjul That's where the water collects. But that's not really the discharge point. I mean, that is the point where it collects initially, and then it needs to be allowed to go to the other side of Bond Road. Bond Road is actually a barrier, because if Bond Road wasn't there, the whole of Tan will be flooded every now and then. So it's Bond Road that stops it. Now, what I saw was that the entire Tanbi was completely filled with water, to the extent that even in some areas the water level there was higher than on the other side of the river, which meant you could have opened the gates, but it also meant that there was too much water. Okay, now, and because the water was accumulating there, and I didn't hear any pumps, I didn't see any water coming out from the pumping station, so it means the water was just going. It was collected, it was going, and it was just sitting there. And if water sits there and you're trying to push more water, if the water level is here, you are here, the water wouldn't go in.
Exactly.
So what will happen is ultimately the water will back up until it reaches the same level.
Yes.
This is exactly what happened around Tobacco Road, around London Corner. I went around there and I saw compounds that were flooded. The roads were flooded. And it's just simply because the water wasn't being pumped out. Now, a key lesson for the authorities here is it would be absolutely wrong to think of building anything in the Tan area. Because if you take up the space that the water goes or should go to, the water will not be able to go there, and it will back up and come back to the streets and to the compounds. So the problem I saw in Banjul was purely a result of the drainage not having gone through the entire chain and therefore causing water to back up. And there are solutions that you know, one can look at, but I will.
I mean, we want to come to those solutions. I mean, Sidi, you have something.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. You talked about water. We talk about drainage. For me, what baffles me so far, when I go around this country, with all the road works that I see, I've never seen a drainage that has been built successfully to discharge water. One, is that because we don't have those drainage? The longevity of our roads are shorter. We see you can do a perfectly good road. Within a short period of time, you will start seeing some potholes in the road because the water is sitting on the road. And two, why is it we don't have drainage facilities for those roads?
Good question, Siri. And before I forget, I just want to also mention the issue of sewage. When I was in Banjul, I saw a manhole where water was popping out. Now, it didn't look like sewage water. Probably that was a manhole that is blocked and hasn't been functioning anyway. So there is the issue of sewage flooding as well. Now, drainage, it baffles me, honestly, because anybody who knows anything about roads knows that roads must have drainage. In fact, there is one road with a very good drainage system in the Gambia, the one I know, the road from Banjul to Serekunda. It is one of those drainage systems that are very much in fashion now in countries like UK. They call the sustainable drainage system.
All the water goes
so you
down.
have these sods. So if you look at the two lanes in the middle, you have this area with plants and grass. That is a drainage system, you know. So it's not just the canals or the drains that constitute a drainage system, and it is one of the best drainage systems actually, because what it does is to keep the water away from elsewhere where it could cause damage. It goes into the sustainable drainage system, and with time it will seep through and evaporate. The plants use it. That's why it looks very healthy. Now, drainage is expensive, Sidi. That is the fact of the matter. You know, nothing comes cheap in life. There is no free lunch. So if you really want a good road, and again, it's looking at the benefits and the cost. If you don't have a good drainage system built in the road, you know, is destined to become damaged very quickly. And you see the damage more on the edges, you know, the edge details of the roads. I mean, the day before I was driving, because I had something to do in the night, and you would see on the side of the road, even though you don't have a drainage, I mean, water is very stubborn. You cannot keep it. If it has energy, it will use that energy, and it will find its way. You know, it's always looking for the way, the route with the least resistance. So you have almost like a river on the sides, and it is that flow which is eroding the edges. Now, of course, the potholes, they're also there, because if the water sits, and you saw around Senegambia, there is a section where the road is very low, and it's in fact lower than the edge, you know, the sides. So obviously what happens is that the water will come to the road. It will sit there, you know, and the roads, remember, is sand, gravel, and tarmac, cement, and no, not cement actually. It's only in the Gambia that I see people build roads in reinforced concrete. People don't do that elsewhere in the world. But what happens is that if the water sits there, you know, these things become wet, soaked, because the roads are permeable. There will always be water going through the tarmac, and with time, you know, with the vehicles passing, you know, things begin to move around, and before you know it, you have the potholes. So you have saved money by not designing for drainage, but then very quickly, that saving you're now having to use to maintain. But not only that, but you're also causing suffering. I mean, you know, the road from Turntable going towards Tujareng, when it rains, my heart bleeds for the pedestrians. Both sides of the road are completely filled with water. You cannot even cross to get to the side of the road to catch a taxi. Another important aspect that you touched on is the health, the health effects.
Aspect of it.
I mean, you know, water stagnating with time, you know, is an ideal place for pathogens, and before you know it, waterborne diseases are spreading. So the answer is, we just don't consider it important, I guess.
But from an engineering sort of school, why? I mean,
no engineer in their right mind will build a road without drainage.
But why are we having
it here? No engineer will build a house without drainage. No engineer will build anything without drainage, because engineers, the thing that contractors fear most is water. Because where you have water, you have problem for contractors. It means they cannot do their work if they are working, and it means, you know, a lot of delays and issues. So it's just, I don't know, it baffles me. But the question of planning, moving on, it's not just about lack of drainage, it's also about planning. I mean, you've talked about this before, I heard, and you don't build things without planning. You don't try to find solutions without planning. In flood risk management, there are three, you know, different classes of dealing with flood. The first is to avoid it, if you can. How do you avoid it? You know, go to places that are not known to be prone to flooding. If you are next to the river, you're likely to get flooded. If you're in a place where there used to be wires, as you call them before, where water used to accumulate, you know this is a place where water goes to. So keep away from those places. Now, how do you define those places? There are tools that are used in the industry to determine areas that are, you know, prone to flooding, areas that the risk level of different areas.
Absolutely.
And, you know, if you do not plan, it means in the first place, remember what I said in the beginning, the difference between flooding and flood risk. So if you do not plan, you bring people and infrastructure into places where flooding occurs, so you're creating a risk, you know. And if you do not plan, you don't have a good drainage system, good drainage network. And remember what I said about drainage. It has to be collected, it has to be transported, and it has to be discharged properly. Any of those you fail in, you will have a problem.
Yes, so let's, okay, Aliu.
Yes, now looking at the current state of Banjul, Tobacco Road, for instance, is flooded. I mean, people cannot even leave their homes.
Yes.
And then looking at the current situation, what do you think should be the immediate solution now to help discharge the water from Tobacco Road to the sea?
Well, the first thing is to pump. Try and remove the water from Tan. And the tides move up and down, and the riverside, the level increase changes. Sometimes it's lower, but just pumped the water out. It will take time. I mean,
exactly, because looking at the capacity of the pumping machine,
well,
how long do you think it will take?
You see, this is the problem that we have in this country, unfortunately. You don't just go and put a pump somewhere. When you design properly, you must quantify. Engineering is not an exact science, but it is a science in that it is based on data. It is based on information that creates knowledge. You don't just put a pump, any pump there. You quantify the amount of water that you expect, you know, by using different techniques. And when you know that amount of water that you have there,
just as you can see now.
When you
look at it. That's a Tanbi.
Yeah.
Tan, as you used to call it. Now it's called Tanbi. Yeah. Look at the pumping machine. Look at what it's discharging.
Yeah. Well, to me, this is not much, you know.
Exactly.
Comparing to the water we have.
Comparing to the water that we have as we speak at the Tanbi and Tobacco Road itself.
So the point I was trying to make here is that when you design, your design must be based on data. You should have worked out the amount of water you expect there and determine how quickly you need to get that water out of that place. So in other words, you're looking for a pump of a certain size and a certain capacity. You know, for this kind of thing, you need those pumps. You need to be driving around and you will hear the pumps roaring. Those powerful Grundfos pumps, you know, and pumps that are meant to deal with situations like this. So again, it's not designing properly, not using the right approach to design, and therefore using the wrong tools to solve the problems. So the first thing that needs to be done is to remove the water from Tanbi. You know, I'm glad that at least this is happening now to some extent. But then you also need to remove. And when I walked around Lassoaf, just behind Lassoaf, you know, I mean, there's a major drain there. You know, if you know the drainage system in Banjul, you know, there's that ring, Bond Road, Lassoaf, then goes to Tan, and then you have the main drains, one near PWD, Grand Street, and the one that runs all the way to Box Bar, you know. So all of those discharge into drains that are not concrete drains at the moment, but that's okay. But what you cannot do is to leave those drains unmaintained. Because remember what we said, you want to discharge the water, you want to move it away. And if you have a lot of plants, trees and things growing in the drains, or people throwing rubbish, then it means the drains are not going to function properly. So you need to do that. And obviously you need to also look at how to remove the water from the homes. In some cases, by lowering the level, the water will go away. But there may be cases where the water cannot go away easily, and you might need to, but people are doing this of their own accord.
So let's talk about, do we need infrastructure like leaf, dams, seawalls, and tides? Do we need all those things?
Well, as I said, there are different sources and causes of flooding. The flooding in the Gambia historically is not coming from the sea. Although there was an incident where Banjul was flooded. The elders will tell you
in the 40s.
In the 40s, which I think I think was due to an extreme tide event.
Yeah,
you know,
yes,
I don't think that was just rainfall. So you know, talking about sea walls, that's not an issue as far as I can see at the moment. But what you would need in some places, but again, you cannot. You know, I don't want to preempt. In some cases, in some places, you might need to help move the water away. So you might need to create some artificial channels to take the water, and those will have control structures. If you want to control the movement of water, there are two things you need to take into consideration. One is the topography. The easiest thing is to allow the water to be able to freely flow. It doesn't cost you much. Sometimes you cannot do that, and then you have to put in structures, and you know, you have to use equipment such as pumps, etc. Yes, so yes, that will be part of the solution. But you know, the solution must not be just a knee-jerk. It must be comprehensive. It's not just a knee-jerk reaction. In the UK in 2007, they had a situation like this where everybody was talking about flooding. Everything was flooded. What did they do? They commissioned Sir Michael Pitt to investigate and work with a team of experts to come up with recommendations. From those recommendations, you know, laws were passed. There is the Flood and Water Management Act 2010 in the UK. And they came up with guidelines, you know, guidance for planning. So in the UK, for example, you cannot build in certain areas. If you build, you will have to not only ensure that your property or the infrastructure isn't affected by flooding, but also that your infrastructure or property doesn't impact other people's, you know, flood situation.
And now, Mr. Robinson, let's look at the issue that happened around Greater Banjul area. For example, if we look at the Manjai Bridge, the Kotu Bridge, all these bridges were submerged by the rain. What will you suggest in terms of building our bridges?
Well, you know, again, I'll give UK as an example because, you know, flooding is so much of a problem there that they spend hundreds of millions, if not billions, and flooding. I mean, in the UK, you cannot build the type of bridges that you showed here, bridges like this. And, you know, simply because you can see, I mean, there's debris. And what that debris does is to block one or two of the openings. And if it blocks on one side, the water is trying to come out to the other side. And as a result of that, two things will happen. One is that the water level will rise because the capacity of one is not enough. And if it rises, you know, properties, infrastructure, roads will be flooded. But secondly also, as that happens, you know, you have a certain hydraulic situation. In German they call it Hufeisenwirbel. I think in English it's called horseshoe vortex. You know, and this is a very strong vortex that actually can undermine the pillars of the bridge and ultimately cause it to fail. So the first thing to do, again, is to go back to basic engineering design. You don't just design like that. You look at numbers, you look at facts. So you need to do an assessment to determine the sort of level you would expect under certain flooding conditions. And your bridge must necessarily be raised above that with a margin, you know, up to 30 centimeters or 1.5 meters or something like that. So raise the bridges, widen the openings, and then the water can flow easily. Remember, it's about allowing water to pass.
But in that case, are you suggesting that, you know, we should think of resettling some of the communities that are on waterways?
No, you know, I heard the vice president say that, and you know, with all due respect, I know they are under pressure, and of course, wouldn't it be great if you can move everybody, you know, resettle everybody, and it is a possible solution. But really, before you talk about resettlement, you need to look at the options that you have, because it's about what is possible and about cost as well. I mean, you resettling people, you have to find them a place where they can be connected. You know, people here are already connected to the roads, to the shops, you know. You're taking them somewhere else.
Jobs,
they need
schools.
to have electricity, they need to have water, their kids are in schools here, you know, so it's a very complicated issue. And I am not saying it is not a possible solution, but you know, it has its issues, and all issues have their pros and their cons. But what you should do, and I come back to this, is to carry out a study, a comprehensive study that looks at the problem, what causes the problem, and looks at different options, different solutions.
Thank you.
Out of those solutions, there would be one that would necessarily be the best from a benefit cost analysis point of view. You may not even go with that because you may have other wider considerations, but at least then you have looked at the problem properly. And that is even before you start designing. I've heard you talk about something to be constructed in December, and really that would be a big mistake, because it would just be another knee-jerk reaction. What are you building? What are you protecting? And as I said, water is very stubborn. If you don't treat it right, it will fight back.
We need to go back on the drawing board. Just quickly, I don't know if you're familiar with the social security estate in Jabang. If you have followed social media, you've seen they are flooded. Since the settlement happened, they have been flooded. Yeah. What we understand is that a proper work has not been done. The planning has not been done. No waterways has been taken care of. And then when you looked at the Sukuta Jabang highway as well, you talk about Jambanjeli, Mr. Robinson, that village have never flooded until when they built that road. I mean, yesterday we were there, the elders say, you know what, they love the beautiful road, but again, they are suffering.
Yes.
So, I mean, what advice can you give? You know, the estate in Jabang, you know, people are losing their homes, you know, after investing, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars is there.
Yeah.
You talk about the Jambanjeli Sukuta Highway, the people of Jambanjeli, they are homeless.
Yes.
And those are the images you are seeing.
Yeah, let me tell you a story from the UK, in Newcastle. We were helping them to deal with, you know, urban flooding, and there was a case where somebody bought a house, and you know houses are very expensive in the UK. Hundreds of thousands of pounds. That same day, the house got flooded. You know, so the insurance became an issue and all that stuff. You know, what should happen is to move from having laws and policies. That's your starting point. And then from there, you need to start acting strategically. So what you normally do in the UK, for example, they have these things called strategic flood risk assessment. Now, you know, you look at a wider area, and you look at the possible scenarios of flooding, and you look at the plans, if there are any plans, and do you then see how to fit those plans in the existing environment with a view to avoiding flooding and reducing the risk of flooding to others. So I am not very familiar with the, I mean, I've driven past. I have not been able to go there to look at it. I would love to. I would have loved to go to so many places. But I guess it is the same situation. And let's face it, let's be honest. I mean, all the estates, you know, real estate estates you've seen here don't have drainage.
This is not a private estate, Mr. Robinson. This belongs to Social Security, for Christ's sake.
Yeah,
but thought they would have done their work.
Homework. Yeah, well, but I mean,
look, you can see in the pictures. You can see right there.
That's a serious one.
You know,
I have seen it. I've seen the pictures. But city, you know, private or public, the fact is, you know, it shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen. No, absolutely. You know, I totally agree.
And the way to avoid things like this happening is to engage in proper planning, to have a strategic view, and then to have plans that are quite specific to the area that you have. I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that what's happening is the water is now moving to the communities that were not affected before. So that's what I said. Water is stubborn.
Mr. Rowan, quickly, I mean, the water that comes into the estate is coming as far as Tauto, Oluyundum, Abuko. That was a stream. And they went and settled people there.
There you go. There you go.
And then for Jambanjeli, they never had flooding. When they build the beautiful road, as they say,
yes,
and now they are suffering.
Yes. So the road probably is blocking the pathway.
Absolutely.
And the water can no longer be transported, and it will find another way to get
and the community is saying this. When they are building the road, they told them.
Yeah.
No, we have our natural waterways.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to factor that? They said, no, we are just going by the plan.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So, Siri, what must happen, apart from the knee-jerk reaction, and, you know, obviously it's important to help people, it's important to look at temporary measures and all that stuff, but we must be forward-looking. You know, we must have clear guidelines on planning. You know, it should not be that you can just go somewhere and just build without really looking at, you know, what is there and what impact. Not just flooding, there are other issues as well. You know, I mean, the way we plan waste dump sites, for example, you know, and schools. And when you build a community, you have to ensure that it is connected to the wider community. You know, you know,
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson, for joining us on this morning. I know we'll bring you here again, so that you can, you know, continue sharing this wisdom. I mean, it's very important. I've received a couple of messages from people outside telling me that they are listening, you know, and you know, they are really learning. You know, I think it's very important. This is a national problem.
Yes.
I think we need everybody's hand on deck to bring a solution.
Thank you. Can I just say one final thing?
Yes, quickly.
Next time I'll try and bring one of those tools that we use to determine flood risk.
Exactly.
All right.
I think
thank you. Yes. Thank you very much.
I'm not happy you've not visited Java Estate.
He is the PRO of Java Estate. Yes. All right. Thank you.
No, I'm happy to go with you, Sidi.
Thank you so much.
Viewers, this is all we have for you. Until we come here again tomorrow. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.